check-ins, where we take a little time, go over our problems, and ultimately still have those problems and need to deal with them through public therapy. I'm one of your hosts, Joe Jason, alongside your other host, Harold Owens III. And today we have a very special guest for our check-ins, Mr., or should I say Esquire, Augustus Beam. Augustus, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Joe, Harold.
The Esquire, Augustus Beam.
Yep, a proper Southern gentleman if there ever was one.
You know, I too have a suffix. So, high class, the third. To my name. Yes.
Yeah. It's nice. I like it. I don't have any really. I'm just Augustus Beam. You know, I'm just trying to be myself. Just trying to walk away when people make fun of me for not having a Southern accent like I'm supposed to.
No, I think it's something that everybody who fails to pick up an accent has to deal with. I mean, the Midwestern transplants in Canada often are discriminated against because they're talking about things when everyone else is talking about something.
But the nice thing is that everybody who discriminates them eventually apologizes.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, and they say it that way too. But with the accents,
Sorry.
I don't think
Sorry about that.
I don't think Canadian accents are that ridiculous. I think there's just words that stand out to me. Whereas other accents, sometimes it's the entire delivery that kind of makes me giggle.
I don't believe you. I need a hard, concrete example to buy this. And I need you to deliver that accent.
I think a lot of the African accents, what are you doing? Stop doing that. Why are you come here? They're always so incredulous with everything. What are you doing? Why would you do that? Why would you do such things? They're always so emotive.
Yeah.
And I like how you could just ask pretty much any question in an accent, and it sounds like you're really trying to pry at the truth.
Yeah.
There is truth to that, but they're also coming from another language, whereas Canadians just live far away, and so they just screw up English in their own ways. But I guess I gotta say this: the people I pity most are the British. Those poor saps invented English, right? They invented it, and they cannot say it right. They just screw up everything. They hardly ever use a short A as an apple. But when they do want to use it, they use it in the most ridiculous places. I was watching this one show. There's a character named Sasha. Of course, the character walks out of the building and he says, "Oh, Sasha, why would you say that?" But the most egregious example is, of course, from the British YouTubers who decide to explain American culture to us, such as Star Wars. I'm watching this one video on Star Wars, and this Brit actually has the gall, the sheer audacity to pronounce it Qui-Gon Jinn.
In Qui-Gon?
There's not even a book, right, that would make him Qui-Gon comes from a movie where it is very clearly said Qui-Gon Jinn. And this man has the balls to say Qui-Gon Jinn. Ridiculous.
Yeah, I feel like any sort of excuse is eliminated when it's a fictitious language that's created with a specific pronunciation that...
Well,
Are there any books that would be, written about Qui-Gon that could explain,
It almost sounds like you're about to say something else, which just makes it funnier. But I don't worry about that anymore. I sent Anthrax to his house, and he hasn't posted in a few years, so I think
it's hard to come by since the thousands.
Yeah,
the band just gave it such a bad name. And this stuff is not that bad.
I thought you meant the mailings.
No, I mean
killed a few people.
No,
their
band.
music was that bad?
Their band
sent out CDs and people just start dropping dead? Make all the bodies hit the floor have a brand new meaning.
Yeah. No, like rock on a totally different tangent. I guess like
I like rock as
I don't know. I've been thinking about Limp Bizkit a lot for some reason. Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park, like all the bands that had a rapper, but they like seamlessly fit into the band. Like you didn't know they were a rapper until like the chorus, and you're like, oh yeah, this guy's got beats too, and then it goes back to drums and guitar. I love that.
Yeah, but there's also the letdown of when a rock band, you also don't find out until the chorus that they're screamo.
That's true. It
and then
starts out so melodic, like, oh, I love this cello.
Right.
This cello is just so beautiful.
That has never made me mute faster than just...
Where'd the cello go?
Yep.
Nah. Especially when you're trying to sing along, and you think that you can do it, you're catching on to the melody, then suddenly you gotta find out how to scream.
And like, you told me you could like hold a part of your trachea.
You
and
can't
get a
hold
low
part of
note.
your trachea and make your voice go down lower.
Really?
But for screamo, you just have to like experiment, which is not too bad if you're in an isolated area, but when you're just practicing as you're like listening to it on the radio, then people are assuming that you're getting murdered in your car.
Yeah,
and before you know it,
when you try to practice in public and your phone is just playing videos of pigs squealing, they think you're a psychopath. Like, why are you listening to little pigs getting murdered? And I'm like, no, I swear that their cadence is perfect for this particular sound, and it's called a pig squeal, man. Watch.
Are you one of those guys who plays your YouTube at full volume just in
Out in
public
public?
places? You're just
Yeah,
standing in line
man.
at Chipotle?
Well, the way my phone works, if it's charging in the case that is a charger, I can't use my headphones. So I have an excuse.
What about AirPods?
Too old, actually.
yeah.
Can't even pair with the technology.
Wow.
But he has the phone jack, which gotta give credit for like some old tech.
It does the job.
It gets the job done.
Though, let me ask you this.
I'm still in single-digit iPhone.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. When you do hear somebody screaming, because in our apartment we have some thin walls, when do you assume it's somebody practicing their screamo, their skillet, and when do you assume somebody's getting violently murdered? Because it's like, I don't want to do nothing when somebody's getting murdered.
When they're
but at
really-
the same time, I don't want to interrupt band practice.
It's
I don't
when-
know which is more egregious.
It's when they're really off pitch. Because if you're practicing, you're probably trying to hit some sort of melody or note, but when you're screaming for your life, you don't care.
Yeah, but isn't that like really insulting? Kind of like asking a fat woman if she's pregnant. It's like, I'm sorry, I thought somebody was getting murdered. No, I was just practicing my screamo. Oh,
You were so
you
off.
suck.
No, yeah, you're right. I usually just try to type in the lyrics into Google and see if I get some songs back. And if not, then I'm like, okay, this person's probably getting murdered. and every time I have been both wrong and way too late. to the game.
Davis said the computer is just like
Augustus.
Augustus Beam Googling, please help somebody, anybody enter. I'm like, oh, there's just no lyrics for this. It's weird. Like,
Well, there are, but they're from a
Tricora.
very different genre. It's more like emo. Somebody, anybody, please help.
yeah, no, actually, just call the police if you hear any commotion, even just like a stubbed toe. Overreact.
No,
Get the
yeah.
police involved.
Well, and I do think
This
that
is a public service announcement.
I do think that people who practice screamo should be visited by the police. So I think you guys have kind of helped me out with knowing what I need to do. So thank you.
Well, there's no practice pads for those. Like with the drums, I had friends back in the day who were in drumline, and they managed to practice without me wanting to kill them because they have these nice little drum pads that are just thin little like wood with a thin layer of rubber, and it's not that loud, but it gets the right return. It feels kind of like a drum.
True, and like, people who are learning guitar can just take, a Guitar Hero pad and press the buttons.
Right.
You don't need it plugged in. You don't need to be making loud noise.
And you don't even need to strum
become
that
a rock
hard.
star just learning, red, red, green, blue, orange, orange, blue.
But screaming, I feel like you would need like a little bubble for your head. A soundproof screamo bubble.
So you're saying people should put a bag around their head and just scream into that?
Well, if it's soundproof, yes. If it's not soundproof, what's the point?
Well, it becomes soundproof after a few minutes.
True.
Yeah.
Everything's soundproof when there's no sound.
When there's no oxygen.
True.
So,
True.
I wonder if that's why some people become astronauts. Because that's the one place where they can practice their screamo without judgment.
That really makes me feel a lot differently about the people on the Challenger. I've always said nice things about them.
Now
But
knowing that
now-
they're metalheads?
Well, I probably shouldn't go.
Well, you didn't know that's what the ISS, the International Space Station, has a soundtrack, kind of like 24/7. It's like 99% metal.
Yeah. They turn it down real low whenever they're doing like a video promotion. Like, This is zero gravity, and this is what we normally do. Just a lot of headbanging.
I tell you,
It's hard to headbang in space.
It's also hard to show that we're headbanging in a purely, like, audio medium.
Except for when you talk about it immediately after we're doing it.
I was reading about the Columbia and how it exploded.
I'm not familiar with the Columbia.
Back in 2003.
Was it the styrofoam, or am I mixing up like Challenger?
There was some kind of problem with the Columbia. They decided not to tell any of the astronauts because it was, I guess, Houston had figured it out. Houston said, "We have a problem, but we're not going to tell you."
Houston, we have a secret.
And I don't know what their plan was. I guess they just thought it would be okay. And the folks on the Columbia totally had enough time to have another spaceship or whatever, another shuttle launched and picked them all up. But now they were just like, yeah, you know what, you go for it. And they all burned up in the atmosphere and died.
On re-entry?
Well, I mean, think about it. Don't you think that everybody in NASA would be like, there are some very smart people putting people into space. I'm sure they got it figured out.
Wait, we're
Like,
the smart people.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. It's like, because I'm thinking, oh, sure, NASA's got smart people. They'd probably check that stuff. But everybody at NASA's like, oh, they got smart people. They'll figure it out.
I'm just gonna bring this back around to music though, because
Okay.
I was reading about this, and then I looked at the picture, and to be honest, I was basically on the verge of tears, and then I realized that Smash Mouth was playing in the background, and I was like, this is ridiculous. This is a completely true story, by the way, and I was just like,
Do they
No,
have
it was
more
weird.
than one song?
It was weird. They do, and I
There's an album?
and I unironically listened to Smash Mouth. I don't care.
I mean, it's
No,
great.
and it was very
my,
thousand.
Yeah, my problem, though,
But
is
it's also
that
embarrassing.
they kind of were the biggest name for a very short period of time. So, I mean, between Shrek and the movie Rat Race,
What?
they were... Yes,
What's Rat Race?
The
Rat Race
comedy?
so Rat Race is a, like, comedy that has just a bunch of the big stars of the moment there.
Okay, what was the song?
It's the one.
It was also All Star.
Somebody once.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And just at the end, these people who are going on this race all wind up at a Smash Mouth concert, and then they give all the money they would have won in the race to Charity, who
But
is not
very
the stripper
reluctantly.
that you were thinking about. Charity is actually like for sick children and stuff like
Okay.
that.
An actual charity where you get to see the pain on a lot of these characters' faces as they part with the thing that they've been chasing this whole movie. But it's great.
My goodness.
Yeah,
Very
but
funny.
It's very of its time, as in it got all the most popular actors in a very brief moment in history. So Seth Green is in there, Whoopi Goldberg,
John Cleese, my favorite.
Rowan Atkinson.
Okay.
And it's when they were all just like the actors. Or who's the guy from like Snow Dogs.
Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yep, he was in there too.
I don't even know what Snow Dogs is. Don't tell me. Let's write a freaking book.
Yeah,
Right,
going on
we're talking
here?
about stories.
Yep, so part of the reason that we wanted Augustus here is that he is the foremost authority on how to create a book that does not get published.
Okay, yeah, that makes it better.
So, honestly, I can think of no better way to get started than to talk about what your ideal book is. So, what are some things that after you finally are done with work and you just want to sit back and read and you're looking over your shelf and you realize it's just not scratching that itch. It's missing this. It's missing that.
I like to read the books that just push me into a newer and stranger place, you know? And so it's got a little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of, I don't know, maybe existentialism, and also a little bit of comedy. So Kurt Vonnegut has been great for that. Read a book called Asleep in the Sun, the English translation by Adolfo Bioy Casares, something like that.
Gesundheit.
Spanish. And
I'm pretty sure you would have done an accent if it was Spanish.
so that's what I try to read.
All right.
Okay,
so,
something strange,
So
or at
we
least to change your mindset while you're reading it. Or
Yeah.
is it after? Is it a thing where you while you're in the moment, you want to be somewhere uncomfortable or unexperienced, or is it having read it, you've had your perspective shifted in a way you didn't anticipate?
Yeah, I guess the latter, and then also just being able to tell people about the book, bragging about it, and then knowing that they probably won't read it, even if you described it extremely
Okay,
well.
you will not believe how difficult this book was, but I understand
Not
it,
difficult, but
and you
just
won't get it at all.
It needs to be like a hipster book. Something
Right.
that somebody probably heard of once. And they're like, yeah, that'd be good to read. And I'm sure it's significant. But they never actually get around to doing it. So those books that probably should be on the list of books kids should read in school, but they never get around to doing it. Red Badge of Courage. I'm sure it's great. I'm sure that somebody read it and loved it. I have not, nor will I ever.
It was not compulsory. So.
All right, so let's just start with the setting. So it needs to be something fantastical. What I really love is something fantastical, something that at first seems mundane. So think Twilight Zone or the episode of The Simpsons where a whole universe grows on Lisa's tooth. And just, you go really small and find out that there's a whole world living in something. And so I'm thinking there's an entire civilization, an entire world that exists, but it's on the back of a 1742 penny that was just dropped in a well. And in the bottom of that well there's a whole civilization of tiny beings that were able to thrive.
Okay,
So
and
they're microscopic beings.
Microscopic
They're-
beings, because especially when you get to smaller and smaller scales, physics just gets weird, man.
Okay.
so it's more almost like a parallel universe at that scale. It might as well be its own universe. We're talking Ant-Man, but better.
Yep. Or is that
Maybe
getting
this
too-
one makes sense.
Yep. Or is this going to get too absurdist? To what degree do you like absurdity? As in, well, it's just a little stretching reality, or Discworld, where it's a flat world on top of 4 elephants on top of a sea turtle flying into space.
Because you said existential, so I think that's a good word to drill in on, and then start with something that fits that.
Well, I think you could also start with the mundane, and then everything around it has become stranger or worse or just comedically absurd. So the roof of an office building, right? You start there, but then what's happening around the office building? that is really making your setting far different and going to affect the rest of the story. What do you think?
I like the idea. I just imagined like a mundane work day where you just really want to leave. This main character wants to get out of work, but all the things that are happening around this character that to the reader are kind of amazing and fantastical just are not enough to get out of work because this just apparently seems to happen.
All right, so let me throw this out there. You got these two guys who just always eat their lunch together on the roof. One guy is, like you said, he's like a Disney princess. He wants to get out of his place and see the world. And then the other guy is almost like a robot. He goes to work the same way every day, wears the same like identical white shirt, eats the same sandwich, and doesn't even notice these fantastical things that are slowly happening around this guy who's starting to notice them. So, for example, it begins with something odd but not too peculiar, which is that everybody that they people watch begins to walk in just more and more silly ways, a la Monty Python's Silly Walks.
Mm-hmm. They're watching them, walk down the street?
Yep, they're just on the roof watching people go by, walking along the street, and their walks just get sillier and sillier.
And does the boring, dull guy also notice that the people are doing these?
I think that's up to you. I would imagine that he would notice, but not react at all. You know, kind of like a classic straight man fool situation. So he's just calm and level, like, yeah, eating a sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look at that guy.
What's there to say? He's walking backwards.
Okay, so
I can't do the splits. You know, one person who like walking backwards does splits every single time. It's like, hey, it's pretty cool. It's like, I could do that. Just nonchalant.
okay, so boring man John, let's call him, and the fantastical man Johnny, let's call him.
Good.
Are watching these guys slowly walk down the street, and Johnny realizes, okay, well, at this point, this is amazing. I need to go find out where these people are coming from. They all seem to be coming from the same direction, and they're walking incredibly silly. They're starting to now walk down the street in increasingly absurd and ridiculous outfits and hairstyles and what have you. And so he's trying to convince John at this point that they need to go down to the street and find out what's happening to these people. All right.
Mm-hmm. John would probably decline leaving Johnny to go on this adventure alone because John is just living his everyday life without much excitement, without much change. And I mean, Johnny, when he's starting to walk out to discover what's happening to these people, is probably going to see not only them, but the terrain start to change as well. And as that's happening, he finds that he is being forced to walk sillier and sillier as the sidewalk changes and moves in order to be able to walk and maintain and just to move forward.
And so now he's realizing that it's not so much that these people have changed, but they are merely reacting to the actual setting, the terrain that they are walking. Interesting.
I was imagining that the walk would set in kind of unexpectedly, not like immediately upon leaving the building, but after having gained some information about like what is going on in this kind of westerly direction that we're heading, so that it's like
to the west. As
maybe not so much a climax, like, but one where he seems to have dodged the whatever effects are going on. And it's like a slow onset, like a virus or something.
Where he starts to walk very normally on this obscure terrain, but slowly as he goes further in and finds some fantastical people along the way, he organically starts to change his walk to make it easier to walk through this area.
Well, and then what's interesting, what happens next is that Johnny, who's always been happy-go-lucky, has always found the fun in things and the enjoyment, and has never really doubted his his place on Earth. He's walking down the street, and he's also walking silly because he's needing to adjust to this terrain, this setting that everybody else is adjusting to. He's walking with them, and they seem to be fine. But then, as he turns around and walks, as he turns around, he sees that walking behind him is none other than John, who also seems to be just having a happy, gay old time. And so now Johnny is in this this interesting position where he's starting to doubt that what's happening is actually as it should be, and that something is wrong here.
Because John is out of character now?
Yeah, all of these mundane people walking down the street are being goofy and funny. He's almost kind of like in a 1990s funk cartoon setting. And everybody, despite their silly appearance, the way they talk, the way they walk, they all seem to be still following a mundane routine, and they're all heading in the same direction ominously. Johnny, really, it's his inclination to find out what are they doing and how can he stop the inevitable, or at least stop himself from joining in this condition.
Okay, I like it because it sets up kind of a endpoint or trajectory, but you can put that in kind of arbitrarily far away. So I'm imagining there's like almost like a central like vibration. Like it's I imagine the ground is all wibbly wobbly like I don't know, Gear Fifth. But if that doesn't make any sense to you,
I got you.
That's
well, think
fine.
of Normandy like a battlefield that's just been blown smithereens, and so it's jagged, it's twisted,
but also not static. Somehow always changing, and yeah, if to make you do backflips every step, it's necessary for the ground to do a certain move, then it's doing that. A little bit
like a waterbed.
Yeah, and so I imagine that motion is kind of coming from some source. Something is like shaking and vibrating in just the right way to make all this stuff happen far away from it.
Now here's
kind
the
of
question.
propagating waves.
Here's the question though. John is oblivious to this because he's just living his everyday life.
Right.
But do other people who have had this change happen, are they aware that they've become silly and ridiculous?
No, I don't think so. I think that's part of Johnny's conflict, is that he, all of these people, mundane in their everyday lives, always walking down the streets normally, going from one place to the next, while he's happy-go-lucky and he's strange and he's different, is doing things in another way. So he is seeing that all of these people are merely following a routine, a new routine, and a strange one on the surface, but one that he is increasingly finding no interest in because it is uniformity.
Yep, and so they're all moving to the literal beat of somebody else's drum, the vibration
Indeed.
of the floor, the environment around them. And what if, in a countercultural way, when everything's gone ridiculous, Johnny starts to imitate John, the original John, the boring, mundane, everything is of a simple routine. But by going back to that uniform simplicity that's just everyday and average, he becomes the one who's going against the grain.
Right.
His walk becomes the silly one.
Yep. So the question is, how would the people react? People around him react?
Would it be too on the nose to have like a mirror of the opening scene where someone seeing Johnny becoming John in his like not his super weird walk becoming a super normal walk from like another kind of high angle on a roof, maybe having lunch, that kind of thing. That might be too on the nose. But someone noticing it similarly to how it started.
Like a swaying tower where somebody like seeing John with the sway or seeing Johnny with the sway sees that he looks ridiculous but then starts to follow. I think you either do that or you end it on a somewhat melancholy note where Johnny just goes off walking his own way, like ignored by his peers but finding solace in his own path. Or you can do a little bittersweet where all that happens but John conforms back to his old ways watching Johnny do it. And so they go off into the distance and do have, as you put it earlier, a gay old time.
Oh, so you actually want them to be homos then?
I mean, that's up to reader interpretation. I think being too explicit would ruin, like, the artistry.
Yeah, but I also think the new personality that Johnny has inherited or acquired, and then John reverting back to his old ways, would probably make it the most boring gay sex in the world.
Where they both become as bland as can be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it Wednesday? Oh, okay then.
So,
just a mutual jerking off kind of thing, and then back to business.
So what you're telling me is that this is the kind of book that would upset people across the political spectrum when it comes to homosexuality. Because the gay undertones would upset conservatives, but
not even undertones.
But the dullness of the gay portrayal would upset the like homoerotics.
Right, and so basically, what we have created is a new 1984, despised by the hard right for George Orwell's appreciation for socialism, and decried by the far left as well for its imagination of totalitarian government.
Okay, and we'll call it 2084. Perfect. Right, it's like far future, but not really. Maybe we make it that far.
2084, from silly walk to boring mutual masturbation.
And it sneaks up on you. You had no idea. This was in the wrong section
of the book
department.
You had no idea it was coming, but it was coming.
Well, let's hope that this appears on school shelves all over. But as every great work of like literature is never actually picked up off those shelves.
Well, I think it's going to be a short story. You know, I think I don't think what we've made here is enough for a novel or a novella. But this is one of those short stories that the English teacher prints off and decides, you know what, I am going to ruin my kid's day. I'm going to permanently alter their psyche right now at 10:30 in English 11 by making them read this short story and helping them figure out what it means.
It's way too difficult to understand, and even if you did understand it, it would
like
just mess
Pablo
up
buys
your brain.
oranges. That is the worst short story I ever had to read, and it's just stuck with me like a thorn I can't get out of my side.
I've not read that one.
It was 3rd or 4th grade.
Oh.
Pablo, like, took a girl out on his bicycle, and he didn't have any money to, like, pay for, like, an ice cream cone for her on his date, so he gave the store clerk an orange. And that's the entire plot.
Oh, yeah, I think I've read that one. Yeah, when I was in 1st grade, our teacher read us a short story, and it basically went that there was a family of mice who were being terrorized by a cat, and they came together. They had some kind of little bell somehow, and they were trying to figure out how they could get it around the cat's neck, not to strangle it, but to to let them know that the cat was
All right,
was
so
getting
this is
near
the
them.
Disney version of the fairy tale.
Right. And then the story kind of ends, and our teacher asked us how they could get the bell around the cat's neck. And all of us answered, and all of us were wrong, right? Even one of us gave the most simple, stupid answer by saying, well, we sneak up on it. And the teacher said, oh, no, you can't sneak up on it because the bell will ring, right? And then the cat will hear them. And so we never got the answer. And then the lesson was just kind of over. And I've been haunted by that my entire life. I'm thinking, was it a brainstorming exercise? Was I absent when she decided to actually tell the class how they got
was
the
it
dang
an
bell?
allegory for her real own life, and she was just asking the students?
She was asking,
for
how do I
answers?
escape my husband? Please tell me.
Did the Alzheimer's
gotta-
finally kick in?
There's got to be an answer.
I have been haunted by that since first grade.
Well, unfortunately, our time is up, so our listeners will also be haunted by that as we wrap things up. Augustus Beam, thank you so much for coming on to our most recent check-in.
So happy to be here.
Thank you, Augustus. This has been a special episode of the Check-In. We record these episodes every other Monday, but please do tune in to our mainline episodes when we'll talk about things that are actually singular topics, or at least broadly described as such. This has been Joe Jason and Harold Owens, alongside our guest Augustus Beam. Thanks for tuning in.